Hello everybody, Maven here, and today we're going over a build with the brand new and most beautiful exotic in the game, the Cenotaph Mask. So a lot of people try to figure out what this looks like, and I think it looks a lot like the Keeper from The Evil Within. As you know, the Cenotaph Mask is basically an Actium War Rig for tracer rifles, and that's going to be amazing alongside the Coldheart, which we're pairing it with today. Now, as you know, the Coldheart ramps up in damage the longer you sustain fire and hold down the trigger, but you can never really take great advantage of that. Since it only has a 100-round magazine, you'd have to reload it and it would reset your damage. But since you can steadily reload it constantly with the Cenotaph Mask, you can take advantage of that ramped up damage for a longer duration. And it's very strong. I was actually shocked at how much damage this was doing. And I actually did some testing with every trace rifle in the game that was worth trying, and nothing came close to the Coldheart. It was amazing. As you know, the Cenotaph Mask also generates heavy ammo for your teammates when a teammate does a final blow on an enemy that you damage with your trace rifle. So it's going to be incredibly meta for Grandmasters and any activity with champions, and GMs are coming next week, so better get your Cenotaph build ready, but people are probably going to use Divinity at that point with it since he's a Grandmaster, you know? But whenever you're doing an activity that doesn't have champions or anything that's not a GM, Coldheart is a very solid and high damaging option, trust me. Anyways, let's do a full build breakdown. Don't forget to drop a like, and I hope you enjoy. So like I said, I tried every other tracer rifle with the Cenotaph Mask, and the Prometheus lens was not bad, except it doesn't do anything special with the Cenotaph Mask because it already fully reloads itself on final blows. So the next best thing, in my opinion, was the Wave Splitter. With that supercharged battery, it does a decent amount of damage, but it does require you to go find orbs. So with that being said, the Coldheart was way more consistent in doing a ton of damage because you don't need to do anything special but just hold down the trigger. So because of Coldheart, we ended up on an Arc subclass. Now let's go ahead and take a closer look at its abilities. Longest Winter. This is a recent buff that Bungie gave it like 2 or 3 seasons ago. Periodically generates ionic traces while in its high damage state. And you're more often than not going to be in the high damage state, and those ionic traces synergize very well with Arc Warlock. Because Electrostatic Mine reads that collecting an ionic trace makes you amplified. So the Coldheart alone can do that for us. Safe to say we're going to be amplified at all times because in addition to that, defeating targets with arc abilities or defeating jolted or blinded targets creates an ionic trace. And then on top of that, we got Spark of Ion, so defeating a jolted target makes an ionic trace, and our grenades are going to jolt targets because of Spark of Shock. So in addition to the Coldheart already being able to generate ionic traces on its own, you pair that with Spark of Discharge, arc weapon final blows have a chance to generate ionic trace. It makes it super easy to generate ionic traces. Sometimes one kill with the Coldheart will generate 2 ionic traces and just feed you tons of ability energy. And on top of that, Spark of Beacons, because we're going to be amplified at all times likely, your arc special weapon final blows create a blinding explosion. So now the Coldheart is also a blinding weapon. And remember, Electrostatic Mine also states that defeating blinded targets generates an ionic trace, so it's just infinite ability spam as well. And also while we're here, let's mention Arc Soul. While we are amplified, our Arc Souls become sentient, so they gain increased rate of fire and more projectiles. We get an Arc Soul by putting down our Rift. Now, Arc Souls are no joke. In PvE, they actually do a lot of damage. You'd be surprised. And for my native choice, I got Pulse Grenade, and for my melee choice, I got Ball Lightning, but you can use whichever melee you want. But Ball Lightning actually got an overhaul recently. I'll put the patch notes somewhere on the screen, but when we're amplified and we send it out, it sends down these 3 lightning strikes that make it feel more like a grenade ability than a melee ability. So essentially with this subclass, we just got 2 different grenade abilities. Now, like I said in the intro, I was actually genuinely surprised at the amount of damage Coldheart was doing, so we're going to do a couple damage comparisons with it. So of course, the first test here is going to be against Carl. Let's go ahead and melt him. And keep in mind, this is without an Arc Soul. Likely in any realistic situation, you would have an Arc Soul at this time. Now moving on to the Hothead Rocket Launcher with Clown Cartridge. Of course, because of Clown Cartridge, it does kill quicker, but not too much faster than the Coldheart. So we're going to need a beefier target for this damage comparison, so let's go up against Charles. Now we're going to do a side-by-side comparison, and keep in mind, I'm doing some cuts to cut out the parts where I had to kill ads. So this is purely just the boss damage parts. And also keep in mind that I swapped to a Hothead that had Field Prep Explosive Light. So I had Explosive Light ×6 procced, and we had 10 rockets. So with explosive light times 6, impact casing, and adept big ones, it took all 10 rockets to kill Charles. Yet we're still able to kill him with just the Coldheart, and again without an Arc Soul. It's crazy the amount of total damage the Coldheart can actually put out. And also remember that with the Coldheart's longest winter perk periodically generating ionic traces as you damage your target, you're going to be able to throw more nades during that encounter as well. And the great thing about this build is you can actually pair these two weapons together, and that makes for a very good loadout. Now I decided to take this damage comparison a step further, and we're actually pairing the Coldheart with an Arc Soul this time, and we're comparing that against a commemoration with a Well of Radiance. Now, before even watching these two clips, anybody in the right mind would say the machine gun in a Well of Radiance is going to do better than a trace rifle in a Rift, and you're not wrong. The commemoration does do better burst damage, but it's only because the reconstruction overflow. And once it runs out and you have to reload manually, that is where the Coldheart jumps way into the lead for sustained damage. And also it is a heck of a lot more ammo efficient because it only uses special. And once that Well of Radiance runs out, everything goes down for the machine gun. I mean, I probably could have done it differently and put up a Rift. Don't tell me I'm rigging this. The Coldheart, no matter how many times I tested, it was just way more consistent. I don't know what to say. So definitely don't sleep on the Coldheart. This thing is a monster. Now, some people out there may be concerned that if we're trying to main a special weapon at all times, we're gonna run out of ammo, right? Well, good thing that I actually have a setup that I use when I do a build based specifically around a special weapon, and this setup allows you to never run out of special ammo. So here is that 3-step setup. On your chest, you want to run a copy of Charged Up so you can carry up to 4 stacks of armor charge. On your boots, you want a copy of Stacks on Stacks, so when you pick up an orb, you get 2 stacks of armor charge. And then on your class item, you want a copy of Special Ammo Finisher. So when you finish an enemy, you consume 3 stacks of armor charge and you generate a special ammo brick. Now, the Special Ammo Finisher brick is strange. It looks like a finder brick, but it's actually a real brick. So you can benefit from something like Arc Scavenger. Pair that with 2 copies of Arc Reserves and you actually get a ton of ammo from that brick. Now, this is the first time ever where I'm doing a build without resist mods. So it's a little bit risky, but we do have 100 resilience, so that helps. And also on top of that, there's an artifact mod that gives us damage resistance while amplified. So you may be curious why we have the Stacks on Stacks and the Charged Up. Now, here's why. If you have 4 stacks of armor charge and you consume 3 of them to use your special finisher, that's going to leave you with 1 stack of armor charge, meaning you only have to get 1 more orb, 4 stacks on stacks to give you 3, so you can do it again. So having this setup makes it very, very consistent to have the 3 stacks of armor charge you need to proc special finisher. And also note that having double Arc Reserves is going to allow your rocket launcher to hold 10 rockets and allows your Coldheart to hold 606 ammo. So that makes it so that that brick you make off a special finisher basically gives you just half of your ammo back. And that is very worth it. So you may have even noticed during the background gameplay that I am periodically performing finishers. That is so that I can pretty much just have infinite ammo for my Coldheart, making it so that I can main it as if it was a primary. And that is crazy that your Coldheart can be considered a primary because it does so much more DPS than every other primary in the game. The only other primary that can possibly compete with it is the Terrabo with Ravenous Beast procced. And something also to note is that exotic primary weapons actually do 40% more damage to miners, and I'm sure everyone knows that. But trace rifles, for some reason, are coded the same way in that scenario, so you are doing 40% more damage to miners. So you can basically think of it as a primary. Now, you could actually run double special with this build if you wanted to, at which point I would highly recommend pairing the Coldheart with a Heritage. 100%, that'd be my #1 recommendation. But if you did run double special, that would reduce the amount of Coldheart ammo you would get when you pick up a special brick. So at that point, is it really worth it? I'm not sure. I'd have to do some testing, but it would be less likely that you'd be able to main the Coldheart at all times. You would sometimes run out of ammo, even when performing finishers. Now, since we're here, let's talk about my kinetic of choice. That is going to be the Buzzard Adept with Overflow Kinetic Tremors. Because of the amount of special bricks we're going to be picking up at all times, that's going to overflow the Buzzard all the time and make it hold 40 in the magazine. That allows you to proc Kinetic Tremors 3 times in 1 mag. However, you can also run something like a Hung Jury if you want that extra range, because the Coldheart can do good from like close to long range, but for the super long range, you may want something like a scout rifle, but you can really use whatever because it doesn't matter. Now let's get on to our mod setup here. Now we already talked about the infinite special setup with the scavengers and reserves. However, we do need to make a lot of orbs to get those armor charge stacks. So we have 4 different ways to do that, actually. The first of which is Reaper. So we put down a rift, our next weapon kill is going to make an orb. Arc siphons, our arc weapon double kills, are going to make orbs. And then 2 different ways in our gloves via heavy-handed and firepower. So our grenade and melee final blows make orbs. So pretty much everything we do can make orbs. So for some extra survivability, we got recuperation. So when we pick up one of these many orbs, we get some health back. We got bolstering detonation. So we throw a nade, we get some class ability energy back. And then we put down a rift, we get some grenade energy back from Bomber. Now stat-wise, because we are sacrificing resist mods, I would 100% recommend 100 resilience. After that, try to go 100 discipline if you can, and then invest as much into recovery as you can. As always, run a minimum of 3 intellect no matter what you do in Destiny 2, or else you get a huge penalty to your super cooldown. And then invest the rest into strength. Mobility does not matter. And now let's talk about the artifact real quick, because we have a lot of juicy arc mods that are really juicing up this build this season. So starting from the top here, we got electric armor. So our amplification meter actually goes up to 20 seconds. I mean, we're already amplified at all times as it is, but this just helps the consistency. And then we got Thunderous Retort. So our super does more damage if we cast it while amplified or critically wounded, which again should be at all times. Amped up so that we are more tankier while amplified, like we talked about earlier. That's going to help because we don't have any resist mods on our chest. And then on the last column here, we got some good ones. Shock and Awe, so our arc final blows generate these jolting explosions, making it so that the Coldheart is basically like a Trinity Ghoul in a way. And then we got Lightning Strikes twice so that we get bonus grenade recharge rate when we throw a grenade, and we can extend that forever with arc final blows, which is very easy to do. So because arc jolt effects can already stun overloads, and we also got overload trace rifle this season, we don't really have to worry too much about overloads. But for barriers and unstops, we got in the kinetic slot, we can have an auto rifle or a hand cannon, and you are good to go for all 3 champions. So I'll show a clip here from a solo legend lost sector just to show that this build can easily blow through tough content. And I already said in the intro, but the Cenotaph Mask is absolutely going to be the meta for Grandmaster Nightfalls whenever you play Warlock. So what you simply got to do is just swap out Coldheart for Divinity, and there you go. It's easy as that, and your teammates are going to generate so much free heavy ammo. They're just going to be able to main machine guns for the entire GM and make the content so easy. Now the gameplay loop for this build is quite simple. Just get Coldheart kills throughout your abilities. You're going to make a bunch of orbs of power, and once you find yourself running low on ammo, like around 300 or less ammo left, just go perform a finisher, and boom, you're back up to max ammo, 606 ammo. And when you come across a boss, you got your explosive light hothead right there. But another thing that you can actually do is that when you know a boss phase is about to begin, you can just swap off the Cenotaph Mask and put on the Geomag stabilizers, and that would allow your Chaos Reach to do so much more damage. It sustains it for so much longer and summons down those lightning strikes, which is a new overhaul this season. And especially pairing that with Thunderous Retort, it goes crazy. And then after you cast it, you can just swap back to your Cenotaph. I know it's a little bit of work to do that, but it's worth it for the extra damage. Now, I know we do a lot of builds here on this YouTube channel, but believe me when I say that this has become my new main Warlock build. Hands down. Like, I have been shocked, no pun intended, at how effective this build is. Now you can pretty much main this build for everything that you do in PvE without a problem, except when you go up against the boss phase, simply just swap the 2 armor pieces, go to your Geomags, and there you go. Just have like a loadout thing ready in the loadout bar in your menu, so that like you can just swap to a Geomag build for a boss phase, and then like whenever you're doing any other thing, just swap back to the Cenotaph. It's easy as that, very convenient, and very effective in every part of PvE. So as always, I will leave a dim loadout link to this build down below in the description and the pinned comment if you'd like to give it a try. And if you have any buddies who may or may not be a Warlock main, I'd appreciate it if you share the video with them. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to hit the like button and drop a comment, because interacting with the video in different types of ways like that really helps it out and helps the algorithm. And if you are new here, consider subscribing. Would love to have you here. And with that, I will catch you in the next video. See you later.